Here's your psychology-based script on the given title. There's a particular kind of grief that nobody really talks about, the grief of losing interest in something you once loved. It doesn't announce itself dramatically. It doesn't arrive with tears or a clear moment of loss. It creeps in quietly, almost imperceptibly, until one day you're standing in front of the thing that once lit you up, your paintbrushes, your guitar, your running shoes, the novel you swore you'd finish, and you feel absolutely nothing. Just a hollow, distant kind of emptiness where passion used to live. And what makes it stranger, what makes it so disorienting, is that you remember loving it? You remember the way it felt to lose yourself in it for hours. You remember the joy, the aliveness, the sense of purpose it gave you. But now, that feeling seems to belong to a different version of you, someone you're not entirely sure you can find your way back to. If you've ever felt this way, first understand something important: you are not broken. You have not lost yourself permanently. What you are experiencing has a name, it has a cause, and more importantly, it has a path forward. But to find that path, we have to go a little deeper than the surface. Psychologists often describe this phenomenon through the lens of something called anhedonia, the reduced ability to feel pleasure or interest in activities that once brought joy. It is one of the most quietly devastating experiences a person can have, precisely because it doesn't feel like pain in the traditional sense. It feels more like numbness. Like the volume of your inner life has been slowly turned down, and you can't quite find the dial to turn it back up. Anhedonia is frequently associated with depression, burnout, and chronic stress, but here is what many people don't realize: you don't have to be in the depths of a clinical episode to experience it. It can settle in gradually, almost unnoticed, as a result of prolonged emotional exhaustion, unprocessed grief, identity shifts, or simply the relentless pressure of living a life that has stopped feeling like your own. Think about how this often begins. You start a hobby you genuinely love, let's say photography. In the beginning, it feels like magic. You go out on weekends, you chase golden hour light, you feel something expansive and alive when you look through the lens. But then, slowly, life begins to crowd in. Responsibilities pile up. Stress accumulates. You start feeling guilty for taking time for yourself, so you photograph less. Or perhaps someone's careless comment makes you feel like you're not good enough, so you begin to approach it with anxiety instead of joy. Or the algorithm rewards certain kinds of images, and without realizing it, you stop creating for yourself and start creating for approval. And gradually, almost without noticing, the thing you loved becomes associated with pressure, judgment, or guilt, and your nervous system, in its effort to protect you, simply starts pulling away from it. This is one of the most important psychological truths about losing interest in things you once loved: it is rarely about the thing itself. It is almost always about what the thing has come to represent. When something we love becomes entangled with performance, external validation, obligation, or self-criticism, our brain begins to associate it with stress rather than safety. And the brain, above all else, is wired to move away from perceived threat. So what feels like apathy is often actually a form of self-protection. There is also something profound that happens to our sense of identity over time. The person who loved hiking at 23 may have been someone with more freedom, fewer responsibilities, a different relationship with their own body, a different emotional landscape entirely. When we change, and we all change, some of the things that were tied to our older self can begin to feel foreign. Not because we've lost the capacity for joy, but because we are in the tender, uncomfortable process of becoming someone new. Losing interest in old passions is sometimes the psyche's way of creating space for a new identity to emerge. It is less a death and more a molt, the shedding of an older skin. But there is a darker thread here too, one that deserves to be named honestly. Sometimes, losing interest in the things we love is a signal, a quiet alarm that something in our life is deeply wrong. Chronic stress floods the brain with cortisol, which over time literally dampens the dopamine system, the very system responsible for motivation, anticipation, and pleasure. When you are operating in survival mode, the brain deprioritizes enjoyment. It cannot afford the luxury of delight when it is too busy managing perceived danger. This is why someone going through a painful relationship, a toxic work environment, financial crisis, or deep grief often finds that color drains from everything, not just the hard parts, but the parts that were once beautiful too. And then there is something more subtle but equally powerful: the role of perfectionism. Many people stop doing the things they love not because they no longer care, but because they care too much. The writer who stops writing because the blank page has become a mirror for their self-worth. The dancer who quits because they can no longer tolerate being a beginner again after a long break. The musician who puts down their instrument because they feel they will never be as good as they once were or as good as they think they should be. In these cases, the loss of interest is really the loss of permission, the inability to engage with something imperfectly, playfully, without the crushing weight of expectation. This is where the healing begins to take shape. Because if so much of what drives us away from the things we love is rooted in pressure, protection, identity confusion, or emotional depletion, then the antidote is not discipline or forcing yourself to care again. The antidote is gentleness. It is radical permission. It is the slow, patient work of separating the thing you love from all the meaning and expectation you have layered on top of it. Psychologists and therapists often speak about the concept of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. When we do something for its own sake, for the pure experience of it, we are intrinsically motivated, and that is where sustained joy lives. But when external forces take over, the likes, the praise, the productivity, the performance, intrinsic motivation quietly erodes. Reclaiming your love for something often means returning to why you loved it before anyone was watching. Before it had to mean anything. Before it had to be good. This might look like picking up the sketchbook with the explicit intention of drawing something terrible. It might mean going for a walk without tracking it. Playing a song on the piano that you've played 100 times, not to improve, but just to feel it. These small acts of low-stakes engagement are not laziness, they are neurological repair. They are how you gently begin to rebuild the association between the activity and pleasure, rather than the activity and pressure. And if the loss of interest feels broader, if it's not just one thing but everything, please hear this clearly, that is your mind and body asking for help, not a sign that you are beyond it. Reaching out to a therapist, talking to someone you trust, or simply acknowledging that you are depleted and need rest, is not giving up. It is the most courageous form of self-awareness there is. You have not lost your capacity for joy. It has not abandoned you. It is waiting quietly, patiently, on the other side of whatever weight you are carrying right now. And the path back to it is not a sprint. It is a slow, compassionate walk. One small, imperfect, pressure-free step at a time. The things you once loved are not gone. And neither are you.